Salutations, Araxians, and welcome to PlanetSide 2 Sneak Peeks. I'm Margaret Crone, and today I get the pleasure of interviewing Alex Hoffman, who is an associate programmer here at Sony Online Entertainment. So come along with me. Thank you so much for joining me today, Alex. Or how do we pronounce your gamer tag here that everyone knows you by?
My gamer tag is MuldoonX9.
MuldoonX9. So where did you come up with that?
Well, it's the character Robert Muldoon from Jurassic Park. The guy
Nice,
who
I
everyone
didn't even
knows
think of that.
Everyone knows him as the clever girl guy. So I just liked him because he carried around the SPAS 12 shotgun.
All right, well, we have a ton of questions from the community, but a lot of them were related to design. So I think people are a little confused. They don't really know what you work on. We kind of explained to people that you're a programmer, currently you work on a lot of the marketplace stuff and XP systems, and maybe you can give us some details on that, just because we didn't really get a lot of questions in detail about those things. I mean, they're more design-related questions, but you're gonna try to answer them anyway.
Yeah. So I'm as an associate programmer, I mostly program in C++ on these systems. So I go to a designer, particularly Ryan Nakashima, who does XP, he does certs, he does some marketplace stuff, and I ask him.
Lots of stuff.
I ask him for guidance on how should we implement this, what is the expected thing, because I might have an idea of how you should gain experience based on other video games, and then he might have a different way, because XP is just the main driving factor behind how you expect players to behave. Like that's the carrot in front, and it's better to have the carrot as opposed to the stick. And if we place the carrot in the right places, people
they'll tend to do those things.
Yeah, they'll do
Which
those
we
things,
want
and we want to encourage good behavior, like assisting kills, reviving, healing. We don't want to enforce spawn camping, which is why there was the spawn camp, the nerf for that almost. So if you kill someone within 4 seconds of them spawning, you don't get as much XP because we want to discourage that behavior.
So if you're just sitting there farming people in the spawn room, you're not really gaining as much experience. But I still think that that's part of the game as strategically at the moment, just because you do want to make sure people aren't coming out of the spawn room.
Yeah, but it was taking away from the Sunderer. People were aiming, like they would say, don't
so
kill the Sunderer. They would say, don't kill the Sunderer, farm the XP. And if we make it so that killing the Sunderer is worth more, then people will kill the Sunderer first.
So as far as the marketplace on the programming side, since we kind of already talked about the XP systems and how you kind of work throughout that, what do you do on that side of things?
Well, I'm just starting out with that, so I've recently gotten some tasks for a nudge system. I've been doing some stuff
and maybe explain what that is, because some people might not know.
The nudge system is basically the introductory rate. So if we see that your account isn't buying station cash, or you've never bought station cash, we'll be like, hey, let's offer you some cheaper station cash, maybe a half off deal, maybe a double station cash deal, and we'll take that and we'll say, hey, now that you've it's kind of like the whole, once they get their credit card or their PayPal information entered, it's way easier for them to then get the repeat business from them. It's the same reason why Steam has sales, why Google Play has 10-cent app days. It's just all about getting that repeat business.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we're using the data that we gather from the way you guys purchase things. If you're not purchasing things, that's still data for us. And then we're kind of trying to utilize that into our system. That way, when designers are creating things like sales or packets that you guys can purchase, what we call them bundles, that way you guys can know, like, hey, this is actually something beneficial for me, or we're kind of showing you things that are going to be useful to you as a player, rather than, like always having something that's generic that's for everybody. Maybe we're kind of catering things more specifically to you in the way that you play.
Yeah. One of the things I was told to think about when designing is, like, say, hey, we see you're flying an aircraft a lot. We can nudge them, hence the nudge system, to say, hey, maybe buy rocket pods, or maybe buy some sort of aircraft upgrade, or some
here's
camo.
A bundle that has everything in it.
Yeah, we'll give it to you at a discounted price.
Exactly.
So it would help us and it would help you.
Exactly. And there were some things that you were working on previously to becoming, this is kind of the marketplace and the experience system are all, well, the experience system not as new as the marketplace system for you. But before that, you were working on a lot of developer tools and things like that. That kind of helped me as a designer. So I think that maybe you can kind of go over some of those things as well.
All right, so the first thing I did when I started here, just about a year ago now, I started on the terrain editor with Bijan Faruntanpour. And he was an excellent.
Oh gosh, he's awesome. He's very awesome. He gets things done really quickly, and he just has a lot of knowledge as far as that goes.
He was an excellent teacher. And just graduating from college not too long ago, he would write up my tasks as an assignment. So there'd be, like, the terrain editor is a huge project. Some files would be tens of thousands of lines long, and it'd be like trying to read a phone book looking for the things, especially as a new person. I don't know how things are structured. So he would basically give me the cheat sheet of, like, all right, here's the phone book of the terrain editor, but I bookmarked the pages where you want to look. And then he would basically stub out what I want to do, give me some ideas on what to name it, And then it would just be like following a homework assignment. And going from there, I was able to learn the terrain editor. I was able to learn where to put functions and where to put all the important data. And then I could be a productive terrain editor asset.
Nice. And if you guys don't know how what a terrain editor is exactly, basically it's how we build our worlds. So for instance, if you guys have ever played on any continent, you are experiencing that tool in action. You're experiencing the world being created, things being lifted up to create mountains, even placing objects like our buildings that we have for our bases and our towers. So it's a crucial part of our development as in PlanetSide 2. I kind of want to start asking these questions now that we've kind of gone over that. I think that was a major thing is people didn't really get what you do. And a lot of times I feel like programmers, it happens to you guys a lot. So I'm going to read off some of these questions. Our first one here, these were actually semi-related to you, so it worked out well. Then they kind of trail off at the end there. This one's from Testy Venom, at Testy Venom, and he wants to know, Muldoon, which NC outfit is your favorite?
Well, of course, Predator and Guard is the outfit that I'm a member of. I like running ops with them on weekends. I don't play with them nearly as much as I should, but they're definitely a real fun group of people. They're really nice and they're great. But
they do stream quite a bit too.
Yeah, but any outfit, I would recommend any new player to join an outfit to make some friends. It's just because the game is just so new. It's so much better when you play with an outfit because you have someone to take orders from, and if you have a big enough outfit,
give orders too.
Yeah. But if you have a big enough outfit, you're taking the fight with you. People will see that there's this big mob coming in, they'll usually respond in force. The Zerg will come, so you can clash heads, and you just got a huge...
You're creating battles, which is kind of cool.
So that's a
And you just take things,
benefit,
which is nice. Taking things is nice. You feel like you're winning.
Oh, yeah.
So he actually has quite a few questions here too. So this one is there a daily routine at SOE that you go through?
Well, the first thing I do is I show up at around 9 in the morning. And then I sync perforce, which is our version control.
It's very long.
So, as a high-level version control it's a programmer thing, and the artists use it too. But you learn about it in computer science. But basically, version control is it keeps track of every change you make. So you check out a file, you make changes to it, and then you check it back in, and then you can take a look at the changes between the two, and that way you can see who did what progress is being made. Then you can take a look at, I can take a look at the last person to do marketplace changes and see what they did. Or if I make a problem, I can see what change list was the problem, and then I can go and fix it. Or someone else can find it and say, hey, Alex, fix your broken crap, please. Yeah. And so so every morning I sync everyone else's latest changes, because that way, if I'm changing stuff, the rug doesn't get pulled out from under me, and I don't see someone else typing over the stuff I'm typing, and that way it's very simple to work together. So 10 people can be working in the same file at once without stomping on each other's toes.
Yep.
But after I sync perforce, I check up on email. I make sure nothing's broken. I make sure I don't have any hugely outstanding tasks. And then that usually brings me up to, I start my morning build, compile, just to make the building compiling makes the code run, for those that don't know. Then Scrum, which is our morning meeting where we say, here's what I worked on yesterday, here's how long I expect to take my today's tasks, and then I spend the rest of the day working on my tasks. And I update them in our Handsoft, which is a tracker which keeps track of what everyone's working on. So the product managers can say, hey, we expect this feature, you said it would be done this time, and so if user interface, well, if user interface is waiting on me, they can say, hey, Alex, we're waiting on your data source for the battle info so we can see if this hex is currently being fought over. And they would need that data source so they can update the map, and I have to provide that data by grabbing it from some raw version in the code.
Yeah. So I think that, how we handle that is basically, we'll have priorities on our tasks. So you have tasks that you think are, well, not you think, but someone above you thinks is more important than another. So a lot of the times you're working on those. And if you get into a rut where somebody's relying on you, you can also say, well, I have these other tasks. So if you want me to do that, you need to tell them that that's more important.
Yeah,
and sometimes they move things around, but a lot of times we stick to what we have in our priority list, which is a lot of times kind of built by you guys with our roadmap system.
Well, yeah. Right now, Chinese anti-indulgence, which for our launch in China, it's a law that they have to have an anti-indulgence system put in, so I have to support those features. And like, as much as I'd love to go on, like, I do check the PlanetSide subreddit every morning to make sure something like experience, I see those often enough. Usually it's a design thing as opposed to a bug.
Yes.
But I check those to make sure nothing's horribly wrong. If there is, I've occasionally forwarded a thread or two to the PlanetSide subreddit. But like, the Chinese anti-indulgences come before any sort of things I see on the forums or on the threads, because it's important that we launch in China.
All right, our next question here is also from Testy Venom. He kind of had a lot of good questions.
He's
and
my
he
biggest fan.
Yeah, he's obviously your biggest fan. And he also was tweeting out questions from other people in the community who didn't have a Twitter, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah.
This question is, how did you get to where you are now?
All right.
Basically, how did you get your job here?
It all started with the movie Office Space. And
oh no.
Watching that movie made me decide I wanted to go into video games.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there was the one part where he's like, there was a school guidance counselor. He's like, well, what would you do if you had $1 million and could retire? And I thought, and the whole point of it is like, oh, you say I buy a car, then you become a mechanic, and they're like, so it's just, it was a school guidance counselor trick that my school guidance counselor never asked me. And so from there I was like, if I had $1 million and could retire, which, and when the movie came out, that was enough to retire on, I always said, oh, I'll go and play video games all day. And I'm like, that's it. I'm going to be a video game designer. So from there, I went to Rochester Institute of Technology, which is in, of course, Rochester, New York.
Okay.
And so I went there, and Rochester Institute of Technology, they just had a new course open up called Game Design Development. And so I signed up for that the second year that they ever had it, and then it was Princeton reviewed as one of the top 10 in the country for game design courses, and I thought it was excellent. And the best part was it was a focus on programming, and they thought that programming would give us the best skills to both get paid well and to be able to use it in other industries. And so I went through 4 years of going to RAT, and I got several job offers. One of them was at SOE, and I had worked an internship here too.
Okay.
On Clone Wars
so you
Adventures.
Kind of already had...
So I already had an in. People knew me here, and it was great. Like, I only had a phone interview to get that internship, and they saw my resume, and a good GPA really helped that too. But it's definitely a lot of who you know, and like going to GDC would have helped me if I didn't know anyone. Going to trade conventions with games. GDC is definitely the biggest one.
GDC, I mean, you're going to meet a lot of people from all over the world.
It's not a press event too, so that it's a industry event. And
so you're only meeting other developers, you're not meeting people who are just trying to get information from you. It's a lot of just sharing information, which I think is really great. I've only gotten to go to GDC once, which I would love to go again. It was a cool experience.
Yeah. So it's definitely a great place to network too. So print out, like any students, definitely print off a resume and go to GDC, get some business cards, definitely get the student pass, get a couple of people. And then after RAT, I got a job starting here not too long, and then I started on PlanetSide. Wow,
so you kind of were lucky. You got right in the door right away. So I think you've kind of given some suggestions, like go to conventions, kind of meet new people, because people are very important in this industry. But are there any other suggestions you would offer to other people who want to be programmers specifically?
Well, definitely, there's a lot of easy programming languages to pick up, like Java and C# are easy languages, and programming is absolutely free. All you need is a good enough computer to run it.
Just pick up a book.
Yeah,
the dummies.
Well, I don't know about the dummies ones. There's just plenty of free online, like Code Academy is really great. There's plenty of good online free resources. Like there's a programming subreddit too that I particularly like.
Nice.
And
what one is that? If you
there's r/programming and r/game dev. Both are very helpful.
So check those out.
Another good tip is to have a portfolio of games. To say, even if they're something simple like Flash games or just Java games that you've written in like a weekend.
I always tell people this because I get a lot of emails all the time from people who just want to get into the scene. I'm like, just do it. You have, as designers, you can just start designing things. You don't even need to know any programming skills. Just design a system, design a game, design whatever you're wanting to do. As a programmer, you can just start programming something. Like have something to show.
Program like a small app. Program for your phone. There's million ingresses for just starting to program. And then, like, Unity is really great. Unity is my favorite 3D prototyper. Like, you can have a character running around in Unity in, like, 10 minutes. Flash is great if you want to make a 2D game. And it's so easy to make a game nowadays. Before you had to, like, get into Unreal or create your own game engine from scratch. Now there's
or you had to purchase one.
There's game engines galore, and there's, like, Unity is free. So that's a great one to just go around and play in.
Awesome. So some extra advice there from that question. And we're only on our third one. All right, our next question here is from Z Company, and they want to know, I would like to know what these developer tools are that you created, and you kind of went over some of that. So you kind of worked on the terrain editor, which was what you kind of already talked about.
I have created all of one tool since being here, and of course that was in C#. All the other tools that I've worked on are me adding to tools. The only tool I created a day for a very specific purpose, and it was something like just changing the name of colors so we could have different tinted colors for decals, and we could just mass create decals for different things, so we could have different locations.
That's still really useful.
It's useful, but I just made it in a day for one specific purpose. But every other tool is tools that have been around for a long time, and we keep adding to them and maintaining them, because like anytime you make a new engine or a new tool, you never start from scratch. So you'll be solving a million problems that have already been solved and better than you could ever possibly do it in like a day.
And I think that's something that we have been trying to do very well with Forge Lite, is building an engine where we can take those little modules and kind of move them around and based on whatever type of game we're using. Like if we make an outfit system or a guild system, we can kind of transfer that from game to game. You know, the new game's always going to have the best one, and if we can just take that and move it to our older games, that's a fantastic thing for us. So we're trying our best to make sure that we do things like that. And so having those dev tools also doing that is really useful.
Yeah, I once had someone ask me a question about why don't we have the chat like PlanetSide 1, and I was like, well, it's not as simple as copy pasting or just plugging it over, but like that's what we try to do nowadays. Is with if we have a common system, we can just plug those things over. Like we grab a lot of things from other projects, but it's not as simple as copy pasting as much as we wish it could be.
So this next one is from Jackalope13, and he is Andrew HC on Twitter, and he wants to know how did you wind up working with XP and marketplace stuff with C++, and how does C++ work better than others?
Well, to start with XP and Marketplace, there was a guy who was working here, and he was a maintainer of XP, and after he left, I was given that system. So I had to learn it without much help. So I had to just dive in. Luckily, it was well commented, the naming conventions were consistent and clear, the system was pretty easy to read, which was a godsend, that I could just actually go into it and read it, as opposed to like everything being like int X, int Y, like why is X doing over here? And so it was something simple like XP give, XP kill, and it would run through a system. It would make sure that you're the last killer. It would make sure you did the right amount of damage for kill assists or critical kill assists, and a whole bunch of stuff. So from there, I was able to add a bunch of systems really quick. And then Marketplace, now that we're winding down a bunch of XP needs and features, because we're trying to keep we're trying to not have feature creep as much as possible in XP, otherwise we'd be here all day. And so Marketplace was the next thing, because Marketplace is what makes us money. And another guy who was, he didn't leave, he went to a different project, and so I was given Marketplace.
Yeah. I think that, with this question in particular, it's interesting that they mentioned the C++ stuff all the time.
Well, I mentioned I program in C++, and the reason I program in C++ is because everyone else here programs in C++. And C++ it's definitely a very popular language, especially for games, because you have so many libraries, you have tons of easy, like, there are texts, there are questions you can Google. Stack Overflow has millions of C++ answers that people have already come up with the solution to. And like, even if we were making a console game, like C++ gives you absolute memory management control. It's something you can't do with a higher level language like C# or ActionScript maybe. So you have to get down as close to the metal as possible, but not as close as, say, C would. But
so do you know other languages, or is that primarily what you're using? So that's what you're focusing on?
I program mostly in C++ here, but here we also use ActionScript and Lua. Personally, I know a C++, C#, those are my two favorite. And I also use ActionScript, I use JavaScript, which is similar to ActionScript. I picked up some Lua from just poking around over there.
Yeah, Lua's pretty easy to pick up. I mean, that's primarily what I learned when I came here, because when I originally started working here, I was working on Free Realms, and we did a lot of stuff in scripts, so I had to learn Lua really quickly to easily grab stuff and make people talk to each other, and like makes different like systems work, particularly for events and things like that. So it's kind of it's kind of an easier way to learn how to script.
Yeah, like if you have a scripting engine, it's really great for designers, because scripts are really easy to pick up. They're usually
They're expensive though.
Pardon?
They're more expensive though.
Yes, but if it comes at the more increased productivity, it can definitely be an excellent trade-off, because then you can hire a bunch of designers who don't all have to have degrees in computer science.
Our next question here is from Nades1247, and he wants to know, will you be implementing a complete cert plus station cache switch to another faction? So basically he wants to know if we plan to have faction swapping.
I was told from a producer, because that is not my particular.
Yeah, this is not your.
Not only do I not make the decisions, I would not be like.
You would not be working on this.
If anything, I would be implementing it, but currently there are no plans to do anything. But I was told.
We kind of basically we want you to stick with the faction that you chose. We will be possibly doing some things like name changes. We obviously already talked about station account-wide things, so if you switch to another character that has that same faction, you'll have all those same items that you purchased. Things like that, but we really do want you to keep your faction because that changes our game completely if you can just swap on the fly.
It prevents fourth factioning or ship jumping.
Yes, exactly. All right, our next question here is from JboH at Jbonaut on Twitter, and he wants to know, any plans to make the recon detect device grant XP for infiltrators?
I was asked to stealth fix that, which means there's no task currently laid out for that, or it's really deep in the backlog. Right now I have a bunch of very high priority tasks that unfortunately outrank that, but I do hope to eventually get into that. So that would take like about a day's worth of work. And
there are actually a lot of experience-based things like that we want to do in the future. You know, just so that we're helping people support, especially support classes or classes that have support utilities. We want you to be using those and getting experience for them, which some of them you're currently not.
Yeah.
So our next question here is from Candice Chastin, and they are Asian Mentality on Twitter, and they want to know, why can't medics get more experience with upgraded tools? Faster heals means less heal ticks with the same, less rewarding experience. And yeah, so this is kind of another one of those things that isn't really a question for you in particular.
Yes, but I took some notes on this earlier.
Okay, he does have notes.
So I was like, that doesn't sound right. So here's a quick flash of my notes. But I took on my test server, I took 3 Vanu Sovereignty characters and 1 TR character, and I shot them with the TR character, and I made the 3rd Vanu Sovereignty guy go get the heal grenades. I threw the heal grenade, and that gave me 72 experience for healing these 2 guys up all the way to full. I took the 1 guy, moved him somewhere else, and then I shot used the Terran guy to shoot the Vanu guy again, and then I threw a heal grenade, and that yielded me 36 experience. So I do in fact get more experience based on how many people the heal grenade is currently healing. It just may not appear that way. You may not be counting the ticks because it was 6.
And I wrote that in my notes too. I'm like, this actually does work properly because I did the same thing as you. Exactly the same thing, but not the same.
Yeah,
factions.
it was 6 experience per tick, and it just like, I mean, you can lose count of like 6 ticks versus.
And when it's such
ticks.
a small, varied amount, people sometimes just miss it.
Yeah.
And it also depends too. Like I think. What we're doing with a lot of our experience systems are making them very dynamic. So based on like how many players that person has killed or whatnot, you're going to get more experience for killing them, things like that.
Yeah, it's a little. We don't telegraph the breakdown of the experience as much as we could, but there are so many factors going into how much experience. Like there's membership, population implant, squad implant. The Chinese anti-indulgence system would eventually come into play later, and then there could be other things that we might add later. And to break all that down, it would fill up your screen real quickly on every XP tick you got.
So we just give you a flat amount that you're gaining, and then you kind of have to do the math on your own.
Which, if you press Alt and unlock your mouse, you can hover over the XP amounts in your bottom left, and it gives you a breakdown of those 4 or 5 different categories.
I didn't know that. I didn't even know that.
I built the data source for it that I handed off to UI, and UI presented it to you, the player.
All right, our next question here is from Neo Shadow Derp, and it's all in leet speak, so you'll be able to see that. Here, it's kind of a little weird. And he wants to know, Alex Hoffman, he's addressing you, I like that. Is PlanetSide a perfect balance game or a perfect cyclical, I think it's cyclical, imbalanced game?
Well, it's definitely not perfectly balanced because perfect balance would require perfect symmetry between our 3 factions. The whole point of our game is
not that.
You don't want to be the blue guys versus the red guys. And I mean, like, there's games for that, and that's perfectly fine. But I mean, our game was trying to pitch something different, that each faction has its own feel.
It has its own attributes.
Yeah, like, I mean, if NC do more damage, but at a slower rate, or slower fire rate, that by definition you can't ever have perfect balance with that.
Exactly.
So we were trying to have like a triple play of asymmetrical balance.
Yeah.
So kind of like a rock beats paper beats scissors type deal. And while yes, we could use some more work with that, we're definitely not perfectly balanced, but there is a certain amount of imbalance, and unfortunately the imbalance might come from who has the most players sometimes.
Well, I mean, that numbers do come into account, because if you know, like, we can't balance on a 1v1 scale.
Yeah.
Our game is so different. And that's something that I constantly have to explain to people, because they're so used to all these other games where you were saying it's the red team versus the blue team. Everyone has pretty much the same items, whether they're named different or they look different. They have the same stats. Whereas we are presenting something that's completely different. We have different play styles that you need to play up on. So if you are NC, you want to rush in there and get close. If you are TR, you kind of want to stand back if you're going to go up
And
against
just throw
an
a lead down range.
Yeah, exactly, because you have that accuracy and those bullets to just kind of fire as much as you want.
Like, I mean, like a tank versus a player in other games, that might be fair. Like in other games, you can board the tank and drop a grenade on. We don't have that, but how do we limit tanks? We have resources. We have tanks are spammable, but not as spammable as infantry and rocket launchers are. So there is a balance in there. It's a balance at a much more macro scale than the 1v1 micro scale.
It is, and you know, that's something that we don't ever get to talk about directly all the time. I think, you know, especially for new players, they don't understand the large RTS scale that we have in our game.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. All right, our next question here is from Ryan Huselek at Hunters_Killers, and he wants to know, any plans for multi-crewed vehicle XP being more team-oriented? Gunners get 0 XP unless they assist, and or unless they assisted. I think he means unless they assist, and assists not shared. And he's saying lib tailgun.
Yeah, the Liberator tail gunner usually gets the short end of the stick, unfortunately.
Yeah, because he doesn't get the shared. Why is that? Why doesn't he get the shared experience? Do you think
because
that was the design?
we would have to. It's a code and design thing. I was never tasked out to do any of this stuff. As a player, I would love to be able to share XP with everyone else. So as a tail gunner, I get nothing unless I kill someone. And it's funny because it's become much more effective to take a Liberator.
And just swap your...
Well, no, just to angle it so that the main gunner faces the aircraft and just blow them out of the sky, and the tail gunner becomes rather useless.
But you have to be pretty skilled. I mean, if you're just picking up some random scrubs, you probably can't.
Well, if you have the shredder, it can be pretty easy to take out some aircraft.
That's
too.
true. Shredder might be.
So, like, I would love to be able to take a system and take an experience, like say maybe the gunner. Or maybe the person who spawns
anybody in the vehicle, like if, for instance, a Sunderer.
Well, who would
anyone in the vehicle.
Well, I mean, it depends on
if someone kills someone in the vehicle, they should all get experience.
Yeah. Well, it depends on if players overwhelmingly want shared experience, or if they want to, like, if it
Tell
we want
him
to
you
make,
want shared experience.
If you want something that it can, like, when I was described it, I was told it'd be something you turned on. So the pilot or the gunner would say, I want to share experience with my friends.
Oh, interesting.
And you would, like, it would be under, like, the vehicle management. This is how it was described to me.
So you're saying that it would divide the experience that you gain amongst everybody.
Yeah,
I don't know if I like that.
See, I think it should be shared, at least, maybe mandatorily shared, maybe optionally shared, but it's something that, like, we would have to figure out how to divide it. I would have to encode count up how many players are in the vehicle.
But it is something that you guys are all kind of discussing.
It's definitely something that's been brought in from me once or twice, but I've never had an official task to do it.
Our next thing here is from Vineeth Philippe, and he wants to know, why is there no 250, 500, 1,000 XP for successful base defense? Currently no incentive to defend.
Well,
wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
Beforehand, there was an incentive. That incentive was not an incentive at all.
Yeah, it was very low.
Well, beforehand, it was an incentive to let enemy players get in,
and then you
cap the point,
take it back.
Let them gain some tickets, and then you would recap it and take it back. And then you would throw a party as everyone got 1,000 defense XP.
Yeah.
And it was essentially an exploit in the game system, and it was an encouraging bad behavior.
Yes.
And so we removed that, and
back
instead
to that carrot.
and we removed that system, and we put in a passive gain with that. So if you look in the bottom left, you'll see a plus 0.00 XP%, but if you're in a base that is owned by you, you'll see it go from anywhere between 5 and 15%. If you press Alt, hover over it, you'll see that breaks down into your defense experience. So if you get a kill, if you go to Zervan and it's your base and you're defending and you get a kill, you'll probably get 15 extra
Oh,
experience.
so you're actually getting not only
Yeah.
for when the base flips and you defended it successfully.
No, well, you
you're
don't-
getting
Well, when
experience
when
for
it flips,
defending.
you don't get any experience. So
Gotcha.
you're just getting experience every single action you take in the defense
Okay.
in the defense of the base.
So maybe that's what they're talking about specifically, is that when the base actually flips, getting defense experience for that.
Then there is an incentive to defend, and it's that extra bonus, that extra passive bonus. So for every kill I get 115 experience, where the attackers are only getting 100 experience. But they have to work towards that 1,000 XP at the base flip, where I'm working towards the every action. So every generator I repair, every person I heal, every person I revive, every tank that I fix and give ammo to.
Okay, so your incentive on your side of things, the way that you're thinking about it, is that I want to incentivize players to actually do the tasks of defending.
Yeah, if they properly defend the base, they will be gaining as much experience as the attackers.
All right, so there's your answer. We had so many questions for you. I know a lot of them weren't really in your realm, so I kind of tried to pick and choose the ones that were, and we're kind of running low on time, so thank you so much. I know that like you share an office with another fellow here
Well,
too,
it's great to be
so
here.
he's standing out there going, I really want to finish my work.
All right,
So
then.
thank you so much.
All right, then.
All right, and don't forget you can always check us out. These air every Friday on twitch.tv/PlanetSide2. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff. And like, subscribe, and comment below.
Sony.